Welcome to another Owner Finance Your Way to Freedom, one note at a time. It is an absolute pleasure to have you guys once again and for you guys to have me. My name is Dan Diaz. I will be your host this evening. For those of you who don't know me, I was born in Mexico City, raised in San Antonio, Texas. I began my real estate investing career in November of 2015. My first deal generated me a little over $80,000 in upfront profit and a $400 monthly spread. And guys, I was absolutely hooked. It is super nice to have you guys on board. A couple of things before we begin. We are using StreamYard. So if you guys would please go to the post and click on the link so that you give StreamYard permission to share your Facebook identity. That way, when you comment, I'll know exactly who you are and I can address you by name. Second thing, if you guys can let me know what city you're from and what is your market, that would be awesome. We've got Alma Flores. How you doing? Good to have you on board. Now I mostly raise private capital to fund owner finance transactions. I teach seller financing as an acquisitions tool. And yes, we still do buy as much site-built single-family homes, raw land, vacant property, large parcels, small commercial assets that we can get our grubby little hands on. I consider myself an owner finance fanatic on a personal level. I love a good dry red wine, stiff scotch, a cold beer, good company, international travel, a bloody red steak, and regular road trips. My wife and I have been married for a little over 3 years, and we have no kids. Thank God. They're not even worth the tax write-off. No, I'm just kidding. They're sweet and adorable. We just don't have any now. We do have a red heeler for a pet, which is pretty cool. Hey guys, good to have you on board. We've got a Facebook user from LA. I'd love to know who you are. Sammy Prieto, Lubbock in San Angelo, Texas. Zagla Signs. Hey. Facebook users, San Antonio, Chris Colton. Hey everybody, welcome. Isabel Diaz. Yo, how are you? Chavel, ¿qué pasó? Alma Flores. We have tagging Alicia Aguilar. Chris Ramirez, hello from Austin, also working in San Antonio market. And of course, Mr. Chris Colton working in San Antonio as well. Bascar from Houston, Texas. Quick question, guys. Are you guys able to hear me loud and clear? Can you give me a little bit of feedback on the audio? That would be loud and clear. Why was this group created? I believe as the financial markets change, our survival will depend on our ability to swim these uncertain and tumultuous seas. I believe that if you make it a goal to sharpen your own creative financial acquisitions teeth, you will shine and prosper. What can you expect to get out of this group? I've made a personal commitment to share this platform and share our experiences, our tools, and our skills to help you become a better negotiator when it comes to seller financing acquisition and owner financing disposition. I believe that this is true mailbox money that can really set someone aside and set up generational wealth for life. What do I expect from you? I expect you guys to be sharks. Now, to me, this isn't just another buzzword or another acronym. To me, this stands for somebody who S, succeeds mercilessly, H, hates mediocrity, A, accepts no excuses, R, resolves to be action takers, K, kills their bad habits, and S, shares what they learned here. This is the breed of sharks that I am breeding today. Now get to know the group a little bit. The group was started April 25th, 2020, and to date, we are only 200 members away from 4,000. And guys, I cannot have done this growth on my own. I want to thank you, our moderators and ambassadors, and everyone who brings and shares this group. If you guys see value in me being here regularly on a weekly basis, monthly basis, sharing our experience, please invite your real estate related investor friends, wholesalers, flippers, rehabbers, private lenders, anybody who's involved in real estate, even real estate agents. We'd love to have them on board. As Sohail says, 10,000, here we come. Yes, we do. Alex Cooey. Audio is good. Did I pronounce your name correctly? If I didn't, please give me a thumbs down button. Or if I did, give me a thumbs up. Chris Colton, bam, absolutely. We want to thank you guys for all the questions that you guys have posed today. We've got some really, really, really awesome questions. I'm super happy that you guys are involved, you're engaged, and you're asking. But before we dive deep into that, I do want to let everyone know that we have a very, very special guest with us. We've invited Sarah Montes. She is a licensed realtor and residential mortgage loan originator for over 15 years here in the state of Texas, owner finance specialist, investor-friendly loan originator, Note Pro, active real estate investor. Texas Pride Lending specializes in private lending, loan origination for private mortgages, note sales, and now offers closing services. Without further ado, I'd like everyone to welcome Miss Sarah Montes. Not only is she an owner finance extraordinaire, but she's also a good friend. So please, Sarah, if you could please unmute yourself and share with the group a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how you can bring value to the audience. The stage is all yours. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay, that's there you go.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Montes here. So wanted to kind of just give you, you guys have heard a lot about the seller finance already from Dan's shows. And so for us, Texas Pride Lending is here just to really guide you on the compliance side of doing the owner finance notes. We're here to help you with just not just the compliance, but also to help you teach you how to create the notes that you are able to sell the notes later at a later time if you ever decide to do that. So that's one of the most important reasons why Texas Pride Lending is investor friendly, because we're able to kind of understand the deal or help you structure the deal and kind of give you tidbits. If you can't do a balloon, then what options do you have? And just different things like that. More on the technical side when you're creating the loan. I keep saying notes, but it's a mortgage loan that you're creating, which is also a note that you can monetize later if you choose to do that. So I think that's pretty much it for as far as Texas Pride Lending. We just originate those notes for you. We kind of hold your hand through the process, make sure that we work with your title company to get it closed. And I guess we can open it up for questions.
Yes, absolutely. So couple questions, and it's got to do more directly with you. From your experience, Sarah, what would you say leads to the greatest number of success when it comes to owner financing?
Again, I'm going to go back to creating that mortgage in the beginning. If you do it correctly in the beginning, you set the expectations with your buyers in the beginning. Make sure that they have the ability to repay that loan. Then, if you start or originate that transaction correct in the beginning, then you're able to have success with the buyers as far as like them not paying or if they're late. The communication side of it is very important to tell them that hey, if you ever have problems, if you ever have issues, give me a call. Let's talk it out, right? So I think it's the open communication with your buyers to make sure that they understand they can call you if they do have any issues along the way, because you want a performing note. You don't want a note that's not performing just because you didn't try to work with a buyer, right?
Absolutely. So I really want to show my appreciation for you being here on board. We've got quite a few questions, and which each of them, if you can share an input from your experience, you have a tremendous wealth of experience. We'd love to do that. So you ready to start the questions?
Yes.
Nice. So first question we've got is from Mr. DeMarcus McQueen. He says, we always hear a lot of upsides to owner finance deals, but what are some of the downsides to this strategy? So some of the downsides, well, you want to go ahead? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So some of the downsides that I thought about, because that's a really good question. Obviously, this group is favors and it's a fan of owner financing, but there have to be cons, and what are some of the downsides about that? I picked at least 7 that I wanted to share with the group. One, they are a little bit harder and more tedious to start. And I like to use the word start, in quotes, because a rental agreement, it just requires a rental is just a deposit and an application. And that's really it.
Mhm.
And there's a million people who can quote unquote qualify for a rental. An owner finance situation, though, requires origination, underwriting, closing, and down payment. So it's a little bit harder to start. I think that's the downside. What do you think, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, trying to find the buyer that has that large down payment, where we call it the skin in the game, right? Because you want those buyers to have some kind of commitment to the mortgage, that they're not going to just bail, you know, get into your house. I think the other downside is if you do have a buyer that you let in with maybe a smaller down payment, they could destroy your house and then leave. So when there's skin in the game, it's harder. It's easier to make sure that mortgage continues to pay and that they're going to take care of the property.
Yes, yes. Second kind of downside that I thought about is the fact that you are, and it kind of alludes to it, you're mentioning a little while ago, you're letting go of the asset potentially for years. In a rental situation, you're likely to get the asset back in a year, maybe 2, maybe 3. But in an owner finance situation, you might let it go for 5, 10, 15, 20 years or longer. So letting go of the asset, for some people, I'd love to let go of the asset. I don't care about the house. I care about the note because I built it right. But for some people, that can be the downside, to it. Third thing that I thought about is it is harder and more expensive to end when there is a default. In an eviction situation, it's fairly quick, fairly easy, fairly cheap. They might destroy the home, but it's fairly quick and cheap. A foreclosure situation, even in Texas, which is fairly quick compared to the rest of the country, it is a little bit more expensive and it is a little bit lengthier. Fourth thing that I came up with is the fact that you do not have steady appreciation in your books. Because you're letting go of the asset, guys, you no longer can capitalize on the appreciation. Now, this to me is a quasi, maybe yes, maybe no situation, because if you get it back and it's in decent condition, the home, either through deed in lieu or through a foreclosure process, the home might naturally be worth more. So that's kind of a quasi. But bottom line, in the books, on a yearly basis, you're not going to have appreciation. The fifth thing that I picked out is no tax depreciation in the books. Obviously, you don't own the asset anymore, so you can't really depreciate the house. The sixth thing that I thought about is this does require a greater learning curve. Most people kind of understand what's behind landlording, behind renting a home, but paper lording, as I like to call it, requires a mindset that can take some time to acquire. And the last downside, which I think sometimes is forgotten, is the fact that the cash flow will end. As a worst case scenario, it'll be 30 years, but more realistically, in a 5 to 7 year time frame, either through refinance, through sale of the property, or through default, the cash flow will end. Theoretically, rentals will last forever. So those are some of the downsides, that I thought about. I don't know if there's anything that you'd like to add, Ms. Sarah, regarding some of the downsides of owner financing. I'll talk about them.
I really don't think there's any downsides.
There are.
I'm going to go back to the foreclosure situation, though, because some of the houses, I mean, we have a 1% default rate. People just don't default on these type of loans. But we have had 1 or 2, that couldn't pay. We didn't have to do a foreclosure. We just said, hey, you know what? Here's $1,000, for moving expenses, and just give us the house back. That's it. I mean, so that's typically what we do. And then and they're always pretty happy. Hey, I can't afford the house anymore. Here are the keys back. And we just to be nice, we say, okay, let's just give you a little bit of money so that it covers your moving expenses, or for your deposit, where you go now. far as you were talking about letting go of that asset, well, the other way to look at it too is if you create the notes and then you sell the notes, that you're not having to hold it for 30 years. You can do that, recycle that money, and just go buy more properties. That is another option where you're not having to worry about, like you said, getting rid of that asset. When you create the owner finance notes, it's all about volume too, right? You have to have, a pretty good portfolio to start seeing all of those benefits. And I think that every property you come across can be different, right? So it's different eggs in your basket. It's not always owner finance. Maybe you say, hey, this property, I think that, it would be a great owner finance property, but maybe another one, it's better just to flip it, right? But if it is an owner finance type of property, but you say, I made enough money on the sale that I don't need to hold that long-term note, then, you can sell the note. And so, so as far as letting go of the assets, that's just another way of looking at it, that you're not, you're not out.
Yeah, for sure. And I think every quote unquote, I really was playing devil's advocate because, as you well know, I'm a huge fan of owner financing. But I thought, you know what, it's a legitimate question. It's a good question. What are some of the downsides to owner financing? At the end of the day, for me, I believe, and I think you'll agree with me, Sarah, the downsides, the upsides completely outperform the downsides. And at the end of the day,
Right.
it's my opinion. It works for me. It works for a lot of other people. I advocate for it. Might not work for you, and that's okay. That's the beautiful thing about real estate. There are so many ways to make money. I love the next question because it is primarily directed towards Sarah. Derek wants to know, I've received an offer for one of my properties. I am in the process of negotiating a counter, and we are very close. At what point in the process do I send them to my RMLO?
Great question. So once you get the executed contract, once they're saying, yes, we're moving forward, then that's when you can send us the contract terms of the loan, and of course and we'll get everything started. But really, as far as like, if you're just negotiating, but that they're going to, I would say get the final offer, get the final numbers, and then once you get all of that, then you can send it over, because we move very, very quickly. We process everything within 24 to 48 hours, depending on the buyer's cooperation. So we can still close that pretty quick. 7 to 10 days is typically the average.
Yes. Title company may not have title completed within that time,
True.
but the origination RMLO side certainly would. So to answer the question, as soon as you have an executed contract. I was talking to Derek, and I think one of his concerns was more along the lines of, what if we're going back and forth on like the exact interest rate or the exact payment? At what point can I send it to the RMLO? And
Well, when you send it to us, when you send it to Texas Pride Lending, you say, hey, here's a request for processing. We're going to get started immediately with contacting that buyer, trying to collect their proof of income. So between that time, let's just say in a day, if something changes, then, that's okay. Then we can go back and fix that. So yeah, if interest rate changes along the way, that's not a problem. We can always just redisclose.
Absolutely. Manuel Campa says, a mentor told me that an owner finance foreclosure is not necessarily a bad thing. You get a new down payment. I know a person that sold the same house 6 times. I'm personally only up to 3.
Yep.
But yeah, for sure.
And since I see all these contracts coming in, I'm like, this house again?
I'm sure you do. Sammy wants to know, do you originate all over Texas?
Yes, absolutely.
For sure. Tony's got a question. He says, is an investor more risky than a person who will live in the property in an owner finance situation? What are your thoughts, Sarah? Do you think an investor is a riskier buyer as an owner finance purchase than an owner occupant?
The investor or the investment?
No. He's saying, I think his question is in regards to if I owner finance it to an investor who's going to use it as a rental.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's a little risky. I don't know. There's like a lot of people that just probably wouldn't go that route, just because obviously if you're living in the house, you're going to take care of the house, and it's not, so easy to just stop paying it. If you're selling it to an investor, he gets in trouble, he'll just stop paying, versus someone it's their home. So definitely it is a riskier.
I agree. And I think we can kind of follow the thought process of most banks. You can get a consumer loan at 0% down USDA, VA, 3.5% down FHA. But an investor product, every bank in the world is going to ask for 20% down payment. And that's just a reflection of risk. So
Right.
kind of take your notes from banks, you're kind of going to do okay. There is one upside that you don't have to go through all the Dodd-Frank and Safe Act regulations because it's not consumer protected. But personally, I wouldn't do it unless there's at least a 20% down payment. That would be
Yeah, and we still get those requests to process an investor, because they just want to know, his financials. So we still collect proof of income and make sure that they have the, really just the reserves, right? Mm-hmm. So we do that type of third party investigation for you.
Investigation. I love that word. Chris Ramirez has a question. Sarah, what is your criteria to determine if a buyer is quote unquote qualified?
Okay, so we look at the debt to income ratio is what we're looking at. So we figure out how much they're making, what's the income, and then we pull their credit just so that we can get the liabilities. So what credit cards are they paying on a monthly basis? Do they have, what is their car payment? So sometimes a car payment can be as large as the house payment. And so that'll throw their DTI, debt to income ratio, off whack. So those are the things we're looking at, is to make sure that they can afford this house and that you're not going to have those issues later down the road. And also, going back again to the reserves, we do recommend to always collect 2 months of reserves for taxes and insurance, so that you always have that cushion in case they do miss a couple of payments, that they always have kind of that safety net. But what we look at to qualify a buyer is just really pretty much the main thing is going to be the debt that they have versus the income that's coming in. A lot of the issues with owner finance is that sometimes maybe the buyers don't have proof of income. So we do work with them to help with that. So we will allow 6 months bank statements, and we do an analysis of all the cash that's coming into the account. So if somebody gets paid cash, we can still analyze that and still come up with a debt to income ratio.
Man, all of these questions regarding these buyers are coming up. Junior, what if they don't have any credit or social security number? What do? You send them to me. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yes, so that's just going to be a lender requirement. If they don't have any credit, some of my investors do say, Sarah, I want somebody to have at least a X amount of whatever the credit, like a minimum credit score. Some do. So, it's all based off of you. You're the one that's going to make those decisions. We're just here to give you the facts. Hey, their credit score is this, or this is what they have on their credit. And we don't analyze the credit. All we're looking for is like red flags, like foreclosures, tax liens, things like that. And then, so for the second question on the Social Security, no, they don't have to have a Social Security. So the alternative to that is the tax ID number that typically people will have if they don't have a Social Security number. So we can still pull credit on a tax ID number. But if they don't have that either, there is nothing in Dodd-Frank that says you can't extend credit. That's not one of the reasons why we needed a social, is to pull the credit report. If we can't pull a credit report, then we ask them for an alternate lines of credit. So, like they're maybe they've did like a rent to own on furniture, or even, tote the note car auto sales won't show up on the credit report either, right? So we can get something like that. So different alternatives for the credit.
Absolutely. And then again, half full, half empty situation is that if they don't have a social security, if they don't have an ITIN, if they truthfully, genuinely have no credit, then they also don't have liabilities. So,
Right.
the DPI is kind of allows itself to work, you know, a little
Right.
bit a little bit better. Great question. So, Hale, if a buyer does not have a social security number, can credit still be pulled?
Okay,
Yes,
so if they have an ITIN number, a tax ID number, then yes, we can still pull their credit with that number. But obviously, if they don't have that, then no, we wouldn't be able to.
absolutely. Isabel's got a long question. What are the cost breakdowns? Sometimes we have a qualified buyer and we send them through the RMLO process and are told the buyers would be a high risk to sell to. Is there a down payment for RMLO service, a final price, and a refund if the prospective buyer doesn't qualify?
Okay, so if we feel, if once we get all the paperwork from the buyer, if we feel like there's going to be an issue with them not qualifying based off of our criteria, we definitely immediately stop the process and send you an email and say, hey, how do you want to proceed with this? This person is, at 88% DTI. We'll kind of just hit you with a little snapshot of what we have, and then let you make the decision before we proceed. So there is no fee if we feel like someone can't qualify or there's issues or red flags, like I mentioned before. We'll stop the process, and so at that point, no, there's no fee that's due. Now, if we go through the entire process and we feel like they have the ability to repay and everything fact, we do ask for an application fee from the buyer.
And that
It's
amounts to how much?
550. Mhm.
Mhm.
So the total cost is 1100, but we do ask for half of it, the 550, at the time of approval. And that goes directly.
Very good.
So we'll send out the loan disclosures, and what we tell the buyer is review your loan disclosures, review the loan terms, and if you want to proceed with the loan, then that's when the fee will be due. So that
Very
means
good.
every party has to be ready to move forward in order for that fee to be due
Very
or
good. Very
collected or
good.
paid.
Very good. Now, this is just my own personal best practices, guys. It's not a rule of Sarah. These are just my best practices. Don't send every lead to her. Please don't. Please don't. My
Right.
general best practices is they need to tell me that they have my minimum down payment requirement. So, for example, we will require most of the time about 20% total initial investment. So, we're going to ask them, hey, before we start the process, do you have a minimum of 20% either in the bank or under the mattress or in cash, somehow, some way, someplace? You're going to need it before you close. Do you have it? And if the answer is yes, then we go ahead and send them to somebody like Sarah. Would you say that's probably a
Right.
good practice?
The number one thing is going to be proof of income. I think that's our biggest issue with qualifying
Mhm.
people. A lot of a lot of self-employed people are buying owner finance, and that's why they're buying owner finance, because they can't get traditional financing because of their self-employed situation. So I think that's our biggest hurdle, is somebody not having proof of income. So getting paid.
Your audio.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So we still try to work with the buyer when they don't have, or they get paid cash. We still try to work with them to come up with a way to get that proof of income, through 1099s or verification of employment forms, different things like that. But I think the biggest hurdle is going to be someone that's self-employed, uh, not having proof of income. So as long as they have proof of income, they have the down payment requirements. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, go ahead and move forward with that. Now, what Dan was saying was more like, hey, don't put on your flyers, call Sarah, right? Without
Yeah,
even without even doing a contract or anything like that. So yeah, we like for you guys to already have all of the negotiations uh, underway before it comes to us. But
very nice, very nice.
um, yes, so the
Alex,
next question.
Alex Guy. So it's just a flat fee?
That's correct.
That is correct. Unlike most other originators, which is a percentage, it is a flat fee only with Sarah for sure. Man, I love your questions. You guys are great. We've got, let's see here. Let's pick out a good one. Oh, I like this one. Mr. Andres. He wants to know, if you are aiming to sell a note in the future, is it wise to get title policy even if your buyer didn't want one? What I'm asking is, will an investor who's buying the note ask for title policy?
It's not, I don't think that it's something that should be required. I think if it's really, for the buyer's protection. So if they decide or they decline it and they decide they don't want one, it doesn't affect your note. Now, when you sell the note buyer will get he will get a title policy at that point anyways. So I think, to answer your question, no, you don't have to have one.
I agree.
Because when you sell the note, they're going to do that anyways. So
Yeah, for sure. Good questions, guys. Let's see here. Sammy's got a question. If I have several people interested in a property, I feel they qualify. Should I send them all or just one at a time? So, the ones who don't qualify, must I pay for applications fee or do they? What, are you making everyone sign contracts? Go ahead, Sarah.
Right. So that's exactly what we don't want, right? I don't want to get, 5 people, uh, sending in their docs and then we don't know, what buyer you're going with because we can't charge, the buyers, all of them. We can't. It's only the person who's actually going to purchase that property. So, so yeah, definitely, I would say, definitely pick a buyer first, then have that backup, right? So if that person doesn't qualify, then you can go to your backup buyers.
Yeah. And guys, the way you kind of prevent yourself from getting into that situation, you got to remember your RMLO, and I hope I'm not speaking in your behalf, but your RMLO does not pre-qualify anybody. They approve. So you need to have an executed contract. And if you're ethical, you're only going to have an executed contract with one person at a time. I hope that's the way it should be. So it really should be, a one situation at a time. Which kind of on a side note is important for you to know. Hey, what are you looking for in a buyer? Ask them for down payment requirements. Get a general idea. If you know the monthly payment is going to be $2,000 a month, ask them, how much money do you make? If they say 2,000, 3,000 a month, they're probably not going to qualify. They probably need to say somewhere like around $5,000 or $6,000. 3 times is a good, simple, easy rule of thumb. Their liabilities could screw them up, if they have a bunch of liabilities. But that's a nice way to kind of get in the ballpark situation. All right, we've got Mr. Jason. Tax implications of selling inventory via installment sale and how to mitigate. Oh man, so this obviously is a tax related question. I'm not an attorney, neither is Sarah. I'm not a CPA, neither is Sarah. So you're out of luck, Jason. No, I'm kidding. So this is not legal advice, but these are probably just general best practices. One, you need to hire an experienced tax accountant that understands real estate and specifically mortgages. That's super, super important. So whoever it is you're doing, you're probably going to have to interview 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tax preparers, tax consultants. Make sure that they understand tax law when it comes to real estate. Something else is you need to hold in your portfolio a nice mix of rentals as well, whether they're traditional buy and holds, Airbnbs, corporate furnished rentals, something along the lines of rentals is going to help you with your tax implications. You can also do lease options. They are not illegal in Texas, for crying out loud. You need to educate yourself as to how to properly do them, but you can do a lease option to be executed after 12 months that you've held the property under your LLC or your name for tax purposes. And finally, I think it's just always a good idea to have healthy business expenses. You need to be spending on your company so that your company can grow. So that was not legal advice. That was not tax advice. Seek your own tax professional, but those are just a few general best practices. Anything else you'd like to add, Sarah, along these lines?
No, I mean, I do the same with my portfolio. Is I just really just go to the professionals, right? So I go to my CPA and say, and but this is what she does all day, every day, right? So she just said, no, we need to do it this way. And she's always given me suggestions. So
And this is another
definitely.
reason why it's super important to have quarterly meetings with your CPAs. You need to know, hey, how are my books looking? You know, we're midway through the year. What do I need to be looking at for the next, 6 months or so on and so forth? Edgar, that's a good question, Edgar. Can we report credit bureaus for our buyers? Well, I don't know if you can, but can your note servicing company report to credit bureaus? Your thoughts, Sarah?
Yes, yeah. So that's definitely something you want to do for sure. So the servicing company is going to do that for you. For the $35 a month that they charge monthly that the buyer pays, why not let them again have a professional do that side of it, right? Because also paying taxes at the end of the year, sending out the tax forms, all of the things that have to happen when you're creating these notes, or when you're creating this mortgage, let this loan servicing do all that for you. And it's really, it also benefits you as well because you're able to log in online and see everyone's. I mean, you can see their your portfolios, right? So you see, okay, I have 4 houses that are. They're all paying on time, or something that you can look at every day and not really have to do much work for it. So,
Yes.
but they do, yeah, they report to the credit bureau.
So, Hale, I hope you've taken full advantage of this opportunity to plug Home Key loan servicing. Just thought I'd throw that out there. So Hale's raising his hand. He works for a loan servicing company. So I'm like, and I know that he reports to the credit bureau, so for sure. All right, man, good question, guys. There is another one that is actually kind of a deal situation. And if you guys have your paper and pen, you know that every once in a while we ask you guys to submit your deals and submit your numbers, and we'll kind of analyze them for you and get you some feedback. So here we've got Jamar Mills, one of our students, and he says, I spoke with a seller that has a lien of $20,000. The house already has a tenant in it. Its rent is $1,300 a month before expenses. Property taxes is $150 a month. Electric, $100 a month. Gas, $100 a month. Tenant pays water and sewage. Insurance is $350 a year. He wants $109,000 for it. Any suggestions on how I can go about structuring this deal? So first of all, thank you for submitting your deal. We appreciate it. A couple of questions that I do want to point out is this. One, the $20,000 lien, I would want to find out, what is it? Is it a mortgage? Is it being paid on time? Is it something weird and different, like a child support? Is it a mechanics lien where maybe somebody did work on the property? Can it be negotiated? Is it due? Are they foreclosing? I mean, what's the situation with that lien? So that would be the first thing that I would want to do. Now, the second thing, and I wanted to talk about this, is because someone can easily use the 1% rule. The 1% rule basically says if a property is renting for 1% or more, that's probably a good opportunity to at least look forward. And this one, they're asking for 109 and it's renting for 1,300. It seems to pass the 1% rule. As a matter of fact, it's right around 1.2%. So in my books, it's worth looking into. Doesn't mean it's a done deal, but it means it's worth looking into a little bit more. But the devil is in the details. This is where I like to kind of break down the numbers and see what I can do with them. So simple terms, if you guys want to write them down, $1,300 is coming in on a monthly basis. $1,300 is coming in on a monthly basis. 2, the money going out. The information that we have on the money going out is $150 in taxes, $100 in electric, $100 in gas. The insurance is broken down to $30 per month. for a total of $380. Now, some of the things that I don't see here, but I would want to include in my calculations is property management, vacancies, repairs, and maintenance. Now, I don't know the age of the home. I don't know the deferred maintenance. So there's a lot of numbers that I still don't know, but I'm just going to plug in the following. I'm just going to plug in the following for basic ballpark understanding of the deal. 10% property management fee, 5% allocated to vacancies, 5% allocated to repairs, and 5% allocated to maintenance. I have no idea if these numbers are accurate. These are only ballpark numbers. But they allow us to kind of extrapolate to see if this deal is worth looking more into. That's all it's doing. So if we go ahead and extract these numbers, it looks like there is an additional $325 in expenses that are not necessarily allocated for right now. So if we go ahead and take the $1,300 that are coming in, we subtract the $380 that is going out right now, plus the $325 in the property management, vacancies, repairs, and maintenance allocations, we have $595 gross monthly cash flow. Gross monthly cash flow. Now, if you subtract $200, and this is just an arbitrary number, let's say that you as an investor say, listen, I need to make at least $200 per month, my profit, in order for this to be worth my time. This will tell you how much you can pay in principal and interest per month. How much can you pay the seller? So again, if you subtract $200 profit for yourselves, this leaves $395 as the payment the asset allows you to pay to the seller. That's what the asset can pay. If it charged $1,400 a month in rent, then that means you might have a little bit more. But you're simply taking the current money in and the current money going out, whether or not it's going out. Like, for example, right now it's not charging property management fees, but you are. Right now there's no allocation for vacancies, but you know there's going to be vacancies. There's no allocation for properties, for repairs, for maintenance, but you know that those things are going to happen. So it looks like after you subtract all the expenses and your monthly minimum profit allowance, which I'm just putting at $200, yours might be $300, yours might be $100, yours might be $500, I don't know. It looks like you're left with $395 that you can pay to the seller. So this is where you kind of back into the deal. Option number one, take the $109,000 that the seller wants, divided by $395 per month that the deal can pay, and it looks like you'll be able to pay the seller the $109,000 they want in 275 months. 275 months of $395 each. Now, if they want their money sooner, for example, in 15 years or less, this is possible if you amortize it for 30 years and you give them a balloon payment. Super important. Don't just shorten the time because you're going to reduce the monthly cash flow. You have to amortize it for 30 years and then insert a balloon payment so that they can get paid in 15 or 17 or 18 or 20 years, however way they want it. In my opinion, if they want to get paid under 15 years, I would need to see a price reduction. I would need to see a price reduction. Now, two things that I would want you to look at, or I would look at, which is kind of a weird situation. Why is the landlord paying electric? I don't know. But it says that it's paying $100 a month in electric. That shouldn't be there. It also says that the landlord is paying $100 in gas. Again, why is the landlord paying $100 a month in gas? Makes no sense to me. I have to include it in the expenses because that's what's happening right now. But right now, it just really doesn't make sense to me why the landlord would be paying 100 in electric and 100 in gas. Because if you think about it, here's where the devil's in the details. $1,300, you reduce the 100 in electric and the 100 in gas, you're down to $1,100. All of a sudden, you're right back at the 1% rule. And all of a sudden, what you thought was a really great deal in the beginning turned out to be not so great deal in the end. So anyways, I'd love to see, Jamar, how you go ahead and structure this yourself, and give us a little bit of feedback. But that would be my take on how you would kind of organize this deal. I don't know, Sarah. I know you didn't look at the deal earlier, but I don't know if you have any thoughts that you'd love to add to this.
Yeah, Get that renter out and owner finance it. Easy.
That's 100% true. That's 100% true. And there's parts of the equations that I don't know. I don't know what the ARV is. I mean, at the end of the day, if the ARV is 90,000, oh hell no. This 109 just won't work. On the other hand, if the ARV is $190,000 and it just needs maybe $10,000 in repairs, slam dunk, you might even be able to pay $109,000 cash. So there's a lot of missing information that
Yeah, I mean, for
we
owner
will.
finance, that deal probably would work all day long. I'm assuming,
Mhm.
right, that 150 or above as far as ARV, and then just
For sure.
cosmetic work. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, what Sarah's saying is I would absolutely do that. I think what he was talking about was how would I negotiate a seller finance purchase based upon the
Oh, okay.
fact that it is only bringing in $1,300 a month. So what I teach the students, which I'm sure you're probably not aware, is kind of back into the numbers and tell the tired landlord, hey, listen, if I can alleviate you of the big T's, tenants, toilets, trash, termites, and turnover, and I allow you to keep a similar cash flow on a monthly basis, would you consider a term offer? And give you guaranteed monthly payments. So this is one way in which you can kind of back into the numbers to see if how a seller finance transaction, would work. How many months you need to be doing this for, and what's the monthly payment. And yes, once you close on it, kick the tenant out for sure, and then go ahead and owner finance. But don't tell the seller that. I mean, don't tell them you're going to do that. That's totally your prerogative. Man, we got some good questions. Let's see here. That's a good question. I know he's not asking for himself because he's a little bit of an expert and shark in the group, but Bhaskar wants to know, why do I need an RMLO? How does it protect me? And typical cost, we already know, $1,100. But why do I need an RMLO, and how does it help protect me?
So the main reason why you want to hire an RMLO to originate that loan for you is if you have to foreclose, the judge is going to want to know, did you do your due diligence to making sure that the buyer received the loan terms, right? Because the buyer needs to be aware of what he's getting himself into. And sign on that dotted line saying, yes, I agree to the loan terms that we send them out. And then, also the ability to repay. The judge is going to look at that. Did you make sure through a third party source that this person could make these payments? So if you don't use an RMLO and you go to foreclose, the judge could side on their side. They'll still grant the foreclosure, but you're going to have to pay back any interest you've ever received on that loan and pay all his court costs, attorney fees, all of that.
Yeah.
So it's a risk. Yeah. It's a risk if that buyer forecloses. And then, of course, the other reason is if you ever decide to sell that note, you want that RMLO package that you can send to your note buyer and say, look, this is a pretty little package. I've done everything by the book. Everything's compliant. This is a qualified mortgage. So that always gets you more money for your note.
Absolutely. There is no reason you should not be using an RMLO.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the cost. The cost is going to be just a part of the closing cost, just like your attorney fees and title fees are going to be. So the buyer pays for it.
For sure. So, Hale, why does Dan post at 5 in the morning? Because I love you guys at 5 in the morning. So a lot of my posts are actually scheduled by my VA, and I do instruct her to post between 5 and 7, so that hopefully you guys can see it first when you guys wake up. I do wake up at 5, but I'm not posting at 5 in the morning. That's for darn sure. Charity, John has a question. If the RMLO does not approve the buyer, is there any case where they can still move forward with the buyer?
Yes. So yes, again, we're just providing the facts to you. What's on their credit report, what they can afford. We're just giving you the facts. You're the ultimate person. I mean, you're the person who's going to make that final decision whether you want to move forward with that buyer or not. And yes, there's a lot of times that I'll say, hey, I don't think this is a good buyer, but investors say I still want to sell to them because they have a large down payment, right? Compensating factors. And so as far as the risk of doing it is, again, and we're going to go back to that whole foreclosure thing. If the buyer stops paying and you have to go to court, those are the things they're going to be looking at. Hey, you knew the buyer couldn't afford this house. You put them in the situation. Any risky features too, any risky features that you do on your loan as well, like balloons and things like that. That's why we try to keep you away from all of that. We say, hey, the best thing is just to do a 30-year straight fixed mortgage with no risky features. That way, if you do have to go to court, you say, hey, this was a good loan. We put them in a risky loan, and they did have the ability to repay. So that's the risk, is the foreclosure process.
Yes, everything works well until it doesn't, and then shit can really hit the fan.
And why not, right? I mean, why not get that insurance? Especially again, if you're not paying for it and the buyer's paying for it, protects you in the long run.
Yeah. Sammy's got a good question. He's going to hold you to the fire. If we continue with the buyer, will it still be a QM?
So yes, because there's different factors that go into a QM. We just put on there, the buyer didn't have the ability to repay. So my recommendation letter will state on there. But yes, it's still going to be a qualified mortgage.
Absolutely. Good question. Man, you guys had awesome questions. I wish we had more time, but Sarah charges me a lot of money to be here. No, I'm kidding. Thank you so much for your time, Sarah. We really appreciate you being here. And
anytime.
For sharing. I'm going to throw a couple of curveballs at you. Hope it's okay. Whatever comes to your mind first. I like to do this with all of our guests. They're simple questions. We won't judge you. Are you ready? Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Sports cars or lifted trucks?
Sports car.
For vacation, mountains or the beach?
Oh, beach for sure.
Ugh, I hate sand. For living, city living or country staying?
City living.
I'll see you in the country. We'll see. This one is the death blow. Let's get it right. Coke or Pepsi?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It shouldn't
Pepsi.
be. Oh no!
I know.
Are you really a Pepsi girl?
I don't drink soda, but if I did, it'd probably be Pepsi.
Gotcha, for sure. Now, what is your poison of choice when you choose to drink responsibly alcoholic beverages?
Bourbon.
Straight, neat, on the rocks.
I like it in an old-fashioned glass. Yeah, as an old-fashioned, we always we learned how to make those right at home.
I love that. I love that. You made a fan today, Sohail. I don't know why he likes Pepsi as well.
Yay.
Anyways, thank you so much, guys, for being here. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being here. Again, if you guys see value in us being here on a regular basis, please go to the page, Owner Finance Deep Dive, share the content, invite your friends, wholesalers, rehabbers, flippers, anybody who's involved in real estate, either investing or on the retail side. My personal goal is to grow this group to over 10,000 members as quickly as we can. If someone would like to volunteer and help us in that growth, please reach out to Bhaskar. He's putting together a phenomenal training that'll allow us to exchange value. It's now being formed. With that, guys, I look forward to seeing your questions and your deals in the next week. You guys have a great one. Enjoy. Thank you so much, Sarah. Bye-bye.